Upon hitting the silver screen in 1984, Gremlins immediately took the world by storm, raking in an impressive $153 million globally. Yet the film's resonance in the cinematic world reaches far beyond the confines of monetary success. Gremlins' ingenious fusion of horror, comedy, and holiday themes made a distinctive presence in pop culture, ultimately earning it a permanent seat in the cinema's Hall of Fame. Its imprint on pop culture is not just restricted to influencing filmmakers. The impact of Gremlins is widespread and enduring, permeating into various aspects of pop culture. Characters like Gizmo have become cultural icons, with their images splashed across merchandise and referenced in numerous other films, TV shows, and even music. The film's memorable catchphrase and rules:
Number one, he hates bright lights, we know that. But you gotta keep him out of the sunlight. Sunlight will kill him. Number two, keep him away from water. Don't give him any water to drink. And whatever you do, don't give him a bath. And probably the most important thing, don't ever feed him after midnight.
To celebrate the film's 40th anniversary, here are 5 things you didn't know about Gremlins that you may never have, or probably, heard of. Inspired by mice. Filmmaker Chris Columbus was awarded a scholarship for film at NYU. At the end of his first year, however, he forgot to renew it and had to take a job at an aluminum factory where he wrote the 20-page screenplay for Gremlins. A lover of horror films, books, and comics, Columbus had not only worked at the factory, but he lived there, or an apartment above it or connected to it. I couldn't find the right details. His fear was that he would follow in his parents' footsteps and serve out the remainder of his life not only working for the factory, but living there too. His living conditions forced him to deal with an infestation of rodents.
I lived in a loft in Manhattan, and it was not a pretty place to live. I would sleep at night with my arm draped over the bed, and there were mice. So every now and then I would wake up in the middle of the night with a mouse sort of brushing by my hand. And I had this fear of them starting to nibble on my fingers. And I thought, well, there's nothing really more frightening than these tiny little creatures. So I just started thinking about it, and that's where the idea of Gremlins originated.
One day, while engrossed in a Universal horror film with his friend, it was suggested to him that if he loved monster movies so much, he should write his own. Using his experience with his furry little housemates, Columbus would sneak off at work when he could to write the 20-page screenplay. Mogwais are real? In the original script, which we will revisit again later, Mogwais had a much simpler look and were all brown. Early sketches by Chris Columbus were not based on the rodents that he lived with, but instead their look were inspired by a creature living in the forest of Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines. Tarsiers are a species of small leaping primates measuring only about 3.5 to 6 inches long, excluding a tail that is about twice that length. They resemble the stuffed animals you may have come across at gas stations or in the mall with those large googling eyes. The species dates back about 45 million years, and Columbus did a couple of quick sketches which were then turned into life-size models. Artist Chris Wallace's first design was more closely related to Columbus's original vision, but he was asked by director Joe Dante to make it more puppy-like and have some floppy ears. Steven Spielberg then suggested they add some color, suggesting maybe some white and brown like his dog Chauncey. The next concept Mogwai Wallace created was his last, and Gizmo was born. Gremlins to be played by monkeys? Director Joe Dante and producers Michael Fennell and Steven Spielberg struggled to come up with an idea on how to bring the Gremlins to life. With it being the pre-CGI world and the expense of having puppets created being just out of reach of their budget, they tested the idea of training monkeys to act out the parts. They brought in the rhesus monkey and put a Gremlins mask on its head. What do you think happened? This caused the monkey to panic, and unlike what we saw in the film Nope, where the monkey attacked and killed people, this monkey was scared, ran around the editing room, defecating on everything. The idea was quickly ruled out, and artist Chris Wallace was tagged with the responsibility of creating the design for the Gremlins. Puppets and marionettes were used instead, along with several mechanical gremlins being created for the film. Gremlins led to the PG-13 rating. A month after the release of Gremlins and 2 months after Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, parents were outraged about having subjected their children to seeing a man's heart ripped out from his chest in the latter film. And then a month later seeing creatures wreak havoc on screen and in their children's nightmares. Many parents left the theaters with their children as the violence intensified during the film. Joe Dante stated the idea of taking a 4-year-old to see Gremlins, thinking it's going to be a cuddly, funny animal movie, and then seeing that it turns out into a horror picture, I think people were upset. They felt like they had been sold something family friendly, and it wasn't entirely family friendly. Now, before some of you complain, think about a toddler or a small child watching a gremlin explode in a microwave, or seeing a Christmas tree attack Billy's mother and seeing a gremlin rise out from it, biting and ripping at her flesh. Spielberg soon after met with the Motion Picture Association of America and suggested the implementation of a new rating that sat between PG and R ratings. Thus, the PG-13 rating was born. Gremlins was to be rated R. No, not the film that we got. No scenes had to be modified or cut in order to get that PG rating for the film. Chris Columbus's original script was a straight-up creature feature that was not only gory, but we see our beloved characters from the film be drastically changed. Billy was a nerd who still worked at the bank, whose mom was addicted to Valium, and his dad just ran a regular business instead of being an inventor. In the script, the relationship between Gizmo and Billy is not really existent. In fact, Gizmo is just a neglected pet without a name. He's not laid back and lovable, but instead he is mischievous and calculating. Gizmo replaces Stripe in the script, serving as the ringleader to the other Mogwais that spawn from him, and their transformation isn't by accident from being fed chicken. Instead, they kill and eat Barney the dog. The body count only continues to rise as the Mogwais, including Gizmo, transform into gremlins, and their next victim is Billy's mother, who they decapitate before breaking free from the home to wreak havoc on the town and killing everyone who gets in their path. It was producer Steven Spielberg who suggested that one gremlin should stay true to his original Mogwai form and basically become Billy's sidekick in the course of the film, and that toning the film down would expand the audience that could watch it.
So that really turned the movie around and made the film sort of much more accessible to an audience and much more emotional.
Still. Oops, sorry. So what other Gremlin facts are out there that you know about? Drop it in the comments. And do you love Gremlins? Is it a Christmas movie? Is it a horror movie? Were our parents just overreacting, or was the 80s just a different time back then where us kids were just scarred with what we saw on TV? Remember, we had Tales from the Crypt for our bedtime stories. Anyway, thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Pop 5. I appreciate you watching. So thank you. And please drop a like and a comment just to say hi or just to say, hey, your list was stupid. It's fine. And don't forget, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do that. It's important. It helps us grow. It helps us expand. And it helps more people see what we do. So thank you again. And until the next, see ya.